Good afternoon. Welcome to the big show. The big show is obviously brought to you every single day. We are brought to you every single day, right here, right now at about 5 o'clock. We try and do the big show, and we try and do what we have to do in order to talk about the day in sports. And so we are always trying to look for new angles to talk about the Steelers and everything else. And we always appreciate the fact that, on Tuesday we have the Mike Tomlin press conference. And, of course, Mike Tomlin doesn't always say a whole lot of different things. But, of course, sometimes he says some things that are always telling. And, one of the things that we learned today is that Aaron Rodgers has a broken wrist but wants to continue to play. And I think the other part of it is we've got a situation of where you have, a team that has a pretty big game coming up against the Bears. Joining me now is our good friend from the Post-Gazette, obviously, who covers the Steelers. That would be Ray Fittipaldo. And Ray, today, Mike Tomlin sort of laid out what is going on with respect to Aaron Rodgers' wrist. Why don't you give us where are we at here? What is going on? Are you there, Ray?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. So can you give me an idea of what happened, with respect to Aaron Rodgers' wrist and what it probably means for him in terms of playing?
Yeah, well, it sounds like they're going to try to fit him with a brace. And as long as that brace is able to do its job, in case he gets hit on the wrist again or he falls on the wrist again, they just want to make sure that is protected. As long as that happens, Paul, it sounds like he's going to play on Friday. Now, I don't think he's going to practice Wednesday or Thursday, so there's going to be a little bit of uncertainty leading up to Friday. But as long as he gets out there on Friday, shows the coaches that he can take a snap from under center, as well as the shotgun, then I think he'll be the quarterback in Chicago on Sunday. Just reading between the lines of Tomlin's news conference today, I think that's the most likely scenario for Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, wouldn't you agree? I'll tell you, if I was Mike Tomlin, I probably would sit Aaron Rodgers out for this week. You got Mason Rudolph. I mean, I almost would probably do something like they did with Ben the one week where they had Ben, was healthy, but they made him the backup just in case they needed him. But my feeling with Aaron Rodgers is this deep into the season, you could almost get him a bye week, and you have a built-in excuse of why to do it. Let his body heal a little bit, and let his body heal up a little bit. Give him a little bit of rest. I know that he doesn't want to do that because he wants to play the Bears, but to me, I don't know. I probably would start Mason Rudolph, tell Aaron Rodgers, be ready to go if we need you.
Yeah, I think the difference between like a small fracture and a wrist and maybe a soft tissue injury like a hamstring or a groin, I don't think this wrist injury is going to get better anytime soon. As Mike alluded to in his news conference today, it's going to be a pain tolerance issue. And as long as Aaron can handle the pain and he can deal with that discomfort, I think he's going to be able to go out there and play. So, like the advantages of holding him out for a week or two or whatever that might be, I don't know if that injury is going to improve. Now, Paul, you can make the argument that Mason Rudolph was better than Aaron was in that game against the Bengals. Mason only had 2 drives and they scored on both drives. And, Aaron, I think Aaron led them to the same number of points, just, he didn't have as much success, with his drives. So, I'm willing to have that argument with you, but just in terms of the injury, I just don't get the sense that this wrist is going to get better, say, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, or even a month from now. I just think he's going to have to deal with it until he heals.
Yeah, I mean, so if that's the case, is there anything about this wrist injury that would prevent him from being able to be able to play? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's his left wrist, holding the ball a little bit. I mean, is there anything that, you have to worry about, or is it just a matter of him getting comfortable with a brace on his hand?
Taking a snap from under center, his dominant hand is going to be his right hand. But the left hand is involved, obviously. And, we saw it in pregame against the Colts. CBS cameras caught the snap from Zach Frazier, and Aaron ended up hurting his pinky on that play. So obviously, if you have another mishap with a snap, that can maybe hurt the wrist. I don't want to say it's going to injure it further, but it certainly could hurt him and put him in some amount of pain. Now, in terms of throwing the football, no. Aaron's like any other quarterback. He's going to pat it. The left hand's going to be involved a little bit, but he's just going to spin it with his right hand, and that shouldn't be an issue at all.
I wrote a column for Monday's paper about Mason Rudolph, and the fact that this is a guy that has completely sort of remade his entire image and his entire career. I mean, you were there Sunday. He runs out onto the field. They're giving him basically a standing ovation. He's, in the last 2 or 3 days, if you've looked at social media, there's a lot of people basically saying that, he's the guy that probably should be the quarterback. That, we've got guys, breaking down plays, saying he gets it out of his hand, faster and makes better decisions than Rodgers has. Man, it wasn't that long ago that this guy was run out of town, was it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what was it, 2019, Paul, his second season in the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger goes down. We all thought Mason was going to be the guy that was going to be his big opportunity that season. And he basically ends up losing his job to an undrafted rookie free agent, Devlin Hodges, who was in the NFL for a year and then he disappeared. So it just goes to show you that guys develop at different stages. We just had the same conversation last week. I read a story about James Pierre. James Pierre came into the league in 2020. He had some opportunities to start in his second season in 2021. It didn't go well, but he stuck with it. He made himself useful on special teams. And here he is now playing really well at corner. So, I think experience is a big thing. I think the longer you're around, the more comfortable you feel. So, sometimes things can, your eyes can get a little bit big early in your career. I think that happened with Mason. I think that happened with James. But now that they're, in their late 20s, I think they kind of got it, figured it out, and they're both doing really well.
I think it's interesting, and I think I used this line in my column, that, Mason Rudolph now, because of what he's become, he could be sort of the Steelers' next version of Charlie Batch, a guy who's here for a long, long time as the backup, someone they trust, somebody who obviously knows the offense in and out and can almost serve as like an extra coach, somebody who in a pinch when they need him to go in and maybe win a game or two, he can. I don't know. Could you see that sort of thing for Mason Rudolph where they keep him around for, 4, 5, 6 more years?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, Paul. If Aaron Rodgers does decide to retire, it's going to be Mason and Will Howard and likely a first-round pick if they're able to land one in the spring. Those guys would be the 3 quarterbacks going into the season. And you would think Mason Rudolph would at the very least begin the process as the number 1 quarterback in that scenario. Now, there's another scenario if Aaron Rodgers does come back and they still invest a number 1 pick in a quarterback, then you can actually see Mason Rudolph being the odd guy out, because I don't know that you would want to cut Will Howard after only 1 season, and you're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks. So it's really interesting. I think this can go a number of different ways, but clearly he likes being a Pittsburgh Steeler. He feels comfortable here. He mentioned it after the game. This is home for him, and he kind of saw what it was like on the other side. Last year in Tennessee, got a chance to start a little bit. It didn't go well, different coaching staff. I think the stability under Tomlin, knowing everyone in the Steelers building is comforting to him, and I think that allows him to go out and do what he did on Sunday. That was a big spot for him to come in, big game, and he came through for the Steelers just like he did at the end of the 2023 season.
Well, I think a big thing is, like I said, it's going to be interesting now going forward. I look at this Chicago game, Ray. You look at their record; they're 7-3. But they're. I hate to say it like this because this fan base is so thin-skinned. But their 7-3 is a lot like Pitt's. 7-3, and that is, I mean, they haven't beaten anybody. If you look at Pitt's wins, they've got, they've played 5 of the 6 worst teams in the ACC, and then they beat Central Michigan and Villanova or Duquesne or whoever the hell it was at the beginning. So, yeah, they're 7-3, but I don't know how good they are. I would say the same thing with the Bears. In fact, I think the Bears probably, if I'm not mistaken, are coming off their best win. They beat a J.J. McCarthy-led Vikings team on a last-second field goal. That's probably their best win of the year, which I'm not trying to take away anything necessarily from the Bears, but how good are they?
Yeah. Or maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they also have a win against the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are 4-5-1. I think the Cowboys are definitely playing better now than where they were earlier in the season. But you're right, whether it's the Vikings or the Cowboys, the Bears haven't had a tough schedule. And that's what happens sometimes. A team like the Lions, they're going to get a really tough schedule because they were at the top of the division. The Bears were down there, I think in 3rd or 4th place last season, so they're going to get the easy schedule. To Ben Johnson's credit, they're taking advantage of that. They're learning how to win close games this year. Also, to Johnson's credit, Caleb Williams isn't making the big mistake turning the ball over like he did as a rookie. So they're doing a lot of things right. I don't think this is going to be an easy game for the Steelers, but Paul, I think this is a very winnable game for the Steelers, even though it's on the road. Go in there and play the way you've been playing on defense, which has been really good for the last 2 or 3 weeks. If you go in there and do that, and the offense can be a little bit better than it has been, I think they're going to have a shot to beat the Bears at Soldier Field.
I would also say this: it's interesting to me. If you look at the Bears, right after they play the Steelers, they play at Philadelphia, then at Green Bay, then they get Cleveland. Okay, then they have to play Green Bay at San Francisco and Detroit. I mean, they could literally finish 8-9 with very little effort. And go ahead.
Probably a situation like the Steelers. If they don't win the NFC North, I don't know that they're going to get in. I think the Steelers are in a very similar spot.
Yeah, there's no question about it. You look at we got Ray Fittipaldo with the Post-Gazette with us. We're just going to keep him for a few more minutes. We know he's busy. You look at the situation with Jalen Ramsey and Jamar Chase. Mike Tomlin basically addressed it today and said he really had no problem with what Jalen Ramsey did. I don't know. Is that a fair interpretation of what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know how anyone would react in that situation. I think Jalen Ramsey did do what comes natural. If that happened on the street somewhere, that's the reaction that it's probably going to be worse. Jalen Ramsey probably would have felt more empowered to do damage to Jamar Chase if there weren't his teammates and officials around to break that up. So, I was fine with it. Jalen was adamant after the game. That's what took place. He was proven right. I think in the big picture, Paul, this does a lot of damage to like Jamar Chase's reputation. I mean, this guy is a really good receiver, like one of the top receivers in the NFL, and now he has this stain on his resume that I don't know if it's going to come off anytime soon. Bill Romanowski was a really good linebacker for the Broncos and the 49ers. Why do you remember him?
For spitting on somebody.
He spit on someone in a Monday night game. I don't know when it was, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and that he's never lived that down. Now I think Jamar Chase is in the same situation, and you just wonder what kind of damage this is going to do to his reputation. Someday he might be up for the Hall of Fame, and this is going to follow him. So really stupid, dumb thing that he did, but now he's got to live with it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. The thing about it is, he's a great player. I think the Steelers got in his head a little bit the other day.
Yeah, he didn't handle that really well. And you could tell, I don't know if you saw the interview in the locker room, Paul, but you could tell he was lying. Like you could just see it on his face that he was lying. And so after that video surfaced, like maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, I'm sure he saw it on the way back to Cincinnati. So, yeah, listen, a great player, but not very smart. And like I said, hopefully it doesn't follow him for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think he probably needs to reevaluate it. But the larger issue is the Steelers did a really, really good job of really kind of getting his head, taking him out of the game.
Yeah, 3 catches, 30 yards. I want to say he was still targeted like 9 or 10 times. It wasn't anything crazy, like the 20-some targets in Cincinnati, but just that adjustment of moving Jalen Ramsey to safety, acquiring Kyle Duggar, it's really done wonders for this defense. If you just look at the way they've played, they won two of the 3 games. And if you go back to the Chargers game, the Steelers defense really wasn't the reason they lost that game. Like that first half of defense really kept them in the game. Things kind of snowballed, in the second half. They got tired. But that one was on the offense. So if they can continue to play that way on defense, I would expect similar results the rest of the season. They're not going to face a tandem like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins again. But, the point is they can match up against pretty much any quarterback and any receiving duo and, come out looking pretty good. They did it against the Colts, too, with their wide array of weapons. That's hard to say with all those W's and Y's in there. But, I think 2 good performances against the Colts and the Bengals. And like I said, I think, based on what we've seen, I would only expect that to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, where we're at. If you ask me, it's like one of those things where the Steelers have done a good job. You put Jalen Ramsey back there, it seems like it solidified some things in the secondary. If they can continue to get James Pierre to do that, then it could be, where they play like this every single week, and that's a big part of it. Right before I let you go, how important is this game if you look ahead at the Steelers' schedule?
Well, it's huge. They got the Bears and the Bills before that big game in Baltimore on December 7th. And the reasons it's big is because the Ravens, in turn, have the New York Jets and the Bengals, two teams that, let's face it, even though the Ravens aren't playing great right now, they should win those 2 games. So, if the Steelers don't at least get a split in these 2 games against the Bears and the Bills, they very well could go into that meeting in Baltimore looking up at the Ravens in the standings. And I don't think they want to be in that position, especially when just, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, you had a 3.5-game lead on the Ravens. So at the very least, you want to go into that showdown in Baltimore tied in the standings. If they can do that, I think it'll be good, and we'll see what happens. But, that's why this game in Chicago is really big, and that's why that game against the Bills at Acrisure the following week is going to be really big too.
Right. I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you've worked hard today, had a long day, so I'll let you go. And hopefully it'll be a good day in Chicago for the Steelers.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
All right. We'll see you. That is Ray Fittipaldi of the Post-Gazette. And again, he covers the Steelers and all of that. And, of course, he does a really good job of staying on top of everything else. And I think it's, again, one of these things where this is a bigger game than you think. I do believe that the Steelers probably, if you look at it, should think about giving Aaron Rodgers the week off. Now, and the real reason I say that is because I think when you've got an old player like that, if you could get him the week off this week and somehow survive it, I mean, you could make him the backup and just say, listen, you'll be the backup. You essentially give him, a bye week. And then, you know what, say, depending on what happens, if you beat the Ravens a couple of times, maybe you don't need to play that last game or whatever. You know what? Maybe you give him another bye week down the stretch. I mean, he's 41, 42 years old. That's important. Get him some rest. I think what you saw from Mason Rudolph this week is not, and I hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, I think Rudolph is the guy who should be the starter. He's better. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I think you're losing your mind a little bit, but that's okay. But what we saw from Mason Rudolph was that he's a guy who's good enough to win. You can win with him. That's the key to me. You can win with him. So if you get, him in the game and you let him play, the only thing that matters in Chicago is that you walk out of that stadium with one more point than the Bears. Doesn't have to be, style points. Doesn't have to, be you won by 5 touchdowns. Doesn't have to be, the offense was humming. Could be a game where the defense just basically took care of business. And that's what I would tell you is the key there. And if that happens, you essentially got Aaron Rodgers a bye week to heal up a little bit, to let the body heal a little bit. Let his, legs and arms and everything else. I mean, he's taken some hits in these last few games. I think you have a chance to do it. You should do it. Now, I don't know that they're going to do that for that reason, but I do think that it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they are willing to, think about that. If it looks like Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to strain to get him to play on Sunday because they can't find the right brace for his arm. Or, it's funny. Mike Tomlin was talking about the apparatuses or whatever that they might use to try and, put it on his arm. And Aaron Rodgers wants to play. I keep hearing people say, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers absolutely wants to play because he's absolutely destroyed the Bears over the years. Well, I mean, that's great, except for it's one of those things where he played for a great team. Okay, played for a great team. And when he played for a great team, he played against the Bears during an era when they were terrible. That's what the thing is. They were bad. So, yeah, he let him up. But I don't know that that's saying a whole lot. He was on a much better team. And, he had a lot of weapons, and that was in his prime, and he was great. Let's see where we're at here. Versus the Bears. Let's see. Looks like he was, he had to play more than that. I don't know. It looks like he had 64 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So that's good. It's obviously very good. But anyway, I'm just telling you, I think it's always great. It is always great that he gets a chance to go play against the Bears, but I don't anticipate it's going to be the same as when he was with the Packers. That's all I'm saying. As for this Bears team, I don't know how good they are. As we just pointed out, their best win is either this past weekend, last-second field goal against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings, or, a few weeks ago when they beat the Cowboys 31-14. That was probably their most complete win. Cowboys probably weren't exactly at the same place they are now, so I don't know if they played again right now, if that would be the same result. But they don't have a win over anybody with a winning record. They beat Vegas, Washington, the Saints, the Bengals, and the Giants, and the Vikings. That's their wins. If you look at it, that's what their wins are. I don't know, when they played the Detroit, they got killed. First time they played the Vikings, they lost. And their other loss, they played the Ravens and got smoked. So, I just don't know how good they are. Period. As you know, these shows are brought to you by FanDuel Casino. Get on your FanDuel app. Go ahead, download the FanDuel app right now, and go ahead and try and make some bets going forward. You look at what you have here. For instance, the Steelers right now are actually 3-point underdogs against the Bears. Over under 45.5. Should be a real interesting game. I would expect on the FanDuel app, these numbers are going to actually become a little bit closer. I think honestly, it won't shock me if the Steelers are like about -1 or +1. I think the money will start to move towards the Steelers in this game. That should tell you a lot if you ask me. I think the over-under will come down maybe a point, maybe something like 44, 43 is where it'll settle in. But get on your FanDuel app, do it all week, figure out what you want to bet on, and go make your bets and have a good time. That's what FanDuel is. That's why we tell you it's the best app you can be on for betting on your phone or on your laptop. One thing that's interesting about that Jamar Chase fight the other day, with Jalen Ramsey is that it kind of added a little bit of spice to the Bengals rivalry again, didn't it? I think one of the things that this rivalry has been missing in some ways has been that kind of feistiness, that kind of nastiness. And I think that's what we saw when they had Vontaze Burfict and Pac-Man Jones, and they had some of the morons they had out there on that team. And the Steelers had Hines Ward, and then they had, was it Juju that laid out Burfict, I think maybe? There was a lot of physicality in these games. There was a lot of just sort of nastiness in these games. And I think, spitting on somebody is weak, but the bottom line is he got the reaction he wanted, period. He got the action that, he got the reaction that he wanted. He obviously didn't get away with it completely because he got put in jail for, the next game. But you know what? He was able to get Jalen Ramsey out of the game, And so I know Mike Tomlin said, well, if a guy spits at you, you got to do what you got to do. I think that's such a bad message to send people. As I've said many times, you know what? Prisons are lined with people who are tough guys, right? Lined with people who are tough guys and decided to react poorly to things. So I don't know. I feel like that's where, I'm at with it. I don't think it's the right message, but again, it's a little bit of a, I get it if you're that upset or you get after it like that. I get it. But to me, boy, you have to make sure that you don't get your guys ejected. Period. That's the bottom line there. And I think that's where we talk about the whole thing. So to me, I feel like it's important now to move forward. If you're the Steelers, forget about this game. Move on to the Bears. Caleb Williams has played better. I think that he is playing tougher. I think he's making more plays for them. I still don't think he's great, but he's better than he was. And so he's somebody that the Steelers are going to have to deal with for sure. And the Bears, I think if you look at them as a whole, they are so much better coached this year than they were last year. I mean, the last few years they had, they were a complete and utter you-know-what show. Period. That's the reality. And so it's one of those things where, I don't know, I feel like it is important to remember that. Like, it is one of those things where he has made a difference, and coaching does make a difference. And in this case, I think he's a much better coach than what they had last year for sure. We'll do it again tomorrow. I will try and have another guest for us tomorrow. We'll talk more Steelers. We'll talk a lot of things with Adam on Thursday. We'll do it all like we always do. Until then, have a good day.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.